Consider a hospital that put a human review layer on every AI-generated patient summary. Every single one. Sounds responsible, right? Within 6 weeks, the review team was approving 97% of outputs without changes. 97%. They weren't reviewing. They were scrolling and clicking approve. One reviewer told me, and I'll never forget this, I stopped reviewing them after day 3. I just check for anything that looks weird. That's not human oversight. That's a screensaver with a pulse. Today, trust AI outputs or require human review. This one matters. Let's get into it. Welcome to Binary Business. I'm Will Guidry. Every episode, we take a real business decision, strip out the noise, and run it through a binary filter. Because the best operators don't confuse process with protection. They know the difference between real oversight and expensive theater. Let's break it down. This is the trust question, and it's uncomfortable because both answers feel dangerous. Trust AI outputs without review? What if the output's wrong and nobody catches it? What if there's a hallucination that costs you a client, a lawsuit, or a headline? Require human review on everything? Well, what if the review becomes a rubber stamp? What if you're paying senior people to proofread a machine while their actual work piles up? What if the review layer is the bottleneck that kills the entire value prop of using AI in the first place? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most companies land on require human review as a default, not because they've analyzed the risk, because it feels safe. It sounds responsible in a board meeting. Don't worry, there's a human in the loop. Beautiful sentence. Zero guarantee of quality. Because here's what nobody wants to say out loud. Humans are terrible reviewers of AI output. We are. We skim, we pattern match, we get fatigued. After reviewing 20 outputs, we stop actually reading and start looking for red flags. And AI doesn't produce red flags. It produces confident, well-formatted, plausible-sounding content that happens to be wrong 4% of the time. That's 4% where careers end. So the question isn't really, should a human review this? The question is, can a human actually catch what goes wrong? If the answer is no, your review layer isn't protection, it's a liability shield that doesn't work. All right, let's lay both paths on the table. Binary 1, trust AI outputs. Binary 1 says, trust the outputs, not blindly, strategically. Build confidence through testing, validation, and guardrails. Then let the outputs flow without a human bottleneck. Here's the case. A content marketing agency was using AI to generate first drafts of blog posts. Every draft went through a human editor. Standard practice. Sounds right. But the editor was spending 30 minutes per post making changes that amounted to, and I measured this, changing an average of 11 words per 800-word article. 11 words. That's a 1.4% change rate. They were paying a senior editor $85 an hour to change 11 words. So I asked the editor, are you catching real errors or are you just making it sound more like you? She thought about it and said, honestly, mostly I'm making it sound like me. That's not quality control, that's an expensive ego edit. So they ran a test, published 20 posts with AI drafts and no human edit, published 20 posts with the editor, measured the engagement, SEO performance, and reader feedback, no statistical difference, none. They eliminated the review layer, reassigned that editor to more strategic work, and published 3 times more content. Revenue from content-driven leads went up 40% in a single quarter. Trust first works when the error rate is already low and measurable, when the cost of a review exceeds the cost of occasional errors, when downstream systems catch mistakes naturally, and when the output domain is low consequence. Binary 0, require human review. Binary 0 says every output needs human eyes, because the one time you skip review is the one time the AI hallucinates and something catastrophic happens. This isn't paranoia, this is experience. A legal tech company I know automated contract clause generation. It worked beautifully for a month. Then the AI generated a non-compete clause that was unenforceable in 2 states and potentially illegal in a 3rd. Nobody caught it because they'd stopped reviewing contract language after the first month of clean outputs. The client's attorney caught it during a deposition. That's the worst possible time to discover your AI made up contract law. The fix wasn't removing AI. The fix was building a proper review framework, not read everything, but review high-risk clauses with domain experience. Targeted review by qualified reviewers, not blanket review by whoever had time. And that's the key distinction most companies miss. The choice isn't between review everything and review nothing. It's between review intelligently and review performatively. Review first works when the output has legal, financial, or safety implications, when errors are difficult to detect after the fact, when the audience is external and trust is non-negotiable, and when the domain requires expertise that AI doesn't have. Quick break. If you're rethinking your review layers right now, hit subscribe and drop a like on this episode. It takes 2 seconds and it pushes this show to more operators who need to hear this. All right, let's keep moving. Let's run this through the ABCD framework and build an actual review strategy. A is for audience. Who's consuming the AI output and what's their tolerance for error? This is the single most important variable, and most companies don't segment it. Internal audience consuming rough drafts, low tolerance for delay, high tolerance for imperfection. Trust the output, let the team iterate. External audience consuming final deliverables, low tolerance for error, moderate tolerance for delay, review it before it ships. Regulated audience consuming compliance adjacent content, zero tolerance for error. Review by a qualified human with domain expertise, not an intern, not a junior analyst, someone who can actually catch what's wrong. One insurance company I know had a review process for everything. Customer emails, internal memos, regulatory filings, marketing copy, all went through the same review queue. Same reviewers, same timeline. The regulatory filings were sitting behind customer email drafts in the queue. A compliance report was delayed 2 days because the reviewer was editing the tone of a thank you email to a client. Thank you, Karen. Your compliance report is late because we're making sure your cake emoji was appropriate. The fix? 3 review tiers. Tier 1, no review. Internal drafts and brainstorming. Tier 2, spot check review. External communications, random sample audited works, those weekly types of things. Tier 3, mandatory expert review. Anything regulatory, legal, or contractual. Different outputs, different review layers. That's how the adults do it. B is for build. How do you build review into the system without creating a bottleneck? Most review systems fail because they're bolted on as an afterthought. Let's add a review step. Great. Where? By whom? With what criteria? Against what standards? With what feedback loop to improve the AI over time? If you can't answer those questions, you don't have a review system, you have a delay with a job title. Here's what a smart review architecture really looks like. First, confidence scoring. Build the AI system to flag its own uncertainty. If the model is 95% confident, skip the review. If it's below 80%, route it to a human. Let the machine tell you when it needs help instead of reviewing everything regardless. Second, exception-based reviews. Don't review outputs, review anomalies. If the AI generates something that deviates from the norm, unusual length, unexpected language, outlier recommendations, then flag that. Review the exceptions, not the rules. Third, feedback loops. When a human does catch an error, feed that back into the system. If the same type of error keeps appearing, fix the model, not the review process. The goal isn't permanent oversight, the goal is declining oversight. I tell clients all the time, your review process should be trying to make itself unnecessary. If it's not getting smaller over time, it's not working. It's just existing. C is for convert. How do you get your team to actually follow the review framework? This is where it gets sort of political, because review layers can create power dynamics. The person who reviews AI output has veto power. They control the pipeline. And some people love that power, not because they're catching errors, but because they get to be the gatekeeper, the one in charge. I observed one client where one senior manager was a review bottleneck for all AI-generated client proposals. He reviewed every single one. His team was producing proposals 3 times faster with AI, but the output was sitting in his inbox for an average of 48 hours before he'd approve them. Well, when I asked him why, seriously, he said to me, I want to make sure my fingerprint's on everything that goes out to the client. That's not review. That's a vanity checkpoint. His fingerprints weren't improving the quality, they were just slowing the velocity. So here's the conversion play. Make review a measurable function, not a power position. Track review time, change rate, and error catch rate. If a reviewer is approving 95% of the outputs without changes in under 2 minutes, they're not reviewing. Reassign them to something where they actually can add value. And here's the hard truth. Some people will resist losing review authority because it makes them feel important. That's a management conversation, not a systems conversation. D is for deliver. How do you sustain the right level of review over time? Here's a framework. I call it the trust ladder. Rung 1, full review. Every output, every time. This is where you start with any new AI deployment. You're building baseline data on error rates, error types, and review catch rates. Rung 2, sampled review. After 30 days with a measurable error rate below your threshold, move to a random sampling. Review 20% of outputs instead of 100%. Rung 3, exception review. After 60 days with stable performance, move to exception-only review. Only review flagged outputs, confidence below thresholds, anomaly detection triggers, or new categories that the AI hasn't handled before. And then Rung 4, audit review. After 90 days, move to periodic audits. Review a random batch weekly or monthly. The AI runs autonomously day to day. Humans verify the system's still performing. Here's the key. The system earns trust, but can also lose trust. Most companies are stuck on Rung 1 forever because nobody defined the criteria for moving to Rung 2. Define it up front. What error rate gets you to sampled review? What performance threshold gets you to exception only? Make it explicit. Otherwise, full review becomes permanent, and your AI tool becomes the most expensive first draft generator in the building. Here's the call. Human review isn't a strategy. It's a tool. And like any tool, it has to be deployed intentionally, or it creates more problems than it solves. If you're reviewing everything, you're reviewing nothing. Fatigue turns reviewers into rubber stamps. And a rubber stamp with a salary isn't oversight, it's overhead. If you're reviewing nothing, you're trusting without verifying. And trust without verification in a high-stakes domain isn't confidence, that's negligent. The right answer is a review architecture that matches the risk. Low risk, internal outputs, trust them. High-risk external outputs, review them with domain experts. Everything in between, build confidence scoring, exception routing, and feedback loops that make reviews smarter over time. Here's the question that cuts through everything. Is your review process catching errors or is it catching feelings? If reviewers are making style edits and ego adjustments, that's not protection. That's a bottleneck dressed up as quality control. Build a trust ladder. Define the rungs, climb it intentionally, and let your review process do what it should be doing, getting smaller as the AI gets better. So now, grab your free binary decision scorecard. The link is in the description. Use it to score your review strategy before you build another approval layer that nobody actually uses. And hit the like and subscribe. Every like and every subscriber helps this show reach operators who are tired of theater and ready for real systems. In the next episode, optimize individuals or optimize teams. Should AI make people faster or make teams stronger? That one's going to challenge some assumptions, so don't miss it. This is Binary Business. All signal, no noise.